Hi, and welcome to our biology video. In this video, we're going to see interesting topics that will help us around the stage. Let's begin. Biology branches are varied, such as anatomy, anthropology, botany, embryology, biomedicine, biochemistry, cytology, genetics, histology, immunology, virology, and zoology. To summarize, biology studies the interaction between living beings. One of the most asked questions of humans is, how did life originate on the planet? And answers have varied over the story of humanity as the following ones. A supreme being God that starts life simultaneously. Life occurred in volcanoes. Life starts in the bottom of the ocean, or that we arrive in a meteorite or in a comet.
My name is Angela, and today I'm going to explain the characteristic of living things and the difference between a prokaryotic and an eukaryotic cell. First of all, we're going to talk about the characteristic of living things. Living things are organized. They are organized and complex. Living things have a genetic code. Living things respond to a stimuli. And what is a stimuli? And a stimulus is any action that makes an organism to react. This is an example. You are thirsty and you drink water. The stimulus is that you are thirsty and the reaction is that you are going to drink water because you are thirsty. All living things have homeostasis. All living things have metabolism, and there are two different types of metabolism: the catabolism and the anabolism. In catabolism, we release energy, and in anabolism, we use energy. All living things grow. All living things have reproduction, and there are two types of reproduction. The one that is slow, but it's only reproduce one or two living things, and the other one is really fast and it reproduces a lot of things. For example, plants, bacteria, and the other one, a clear example is humans. Now we're going to talk about the cell types. There are two different types of cells. The prokaryotics, that in common they are bacteria, and the eukaryotic, they are animals and plants. We're going to start with the prokaryotic cells. The characteristics are that this type of cells don't have a nucleus. They're unicellular, they reproduce asexual or parasexual, and the genetic code material is in the nucleus. The components of a prokaryotic cells are the plasma membrane, the cytoplasm, the cell wall, the nucleus, and the ribosomes. Now we're going to talk about the eukaryotic cell. There are presence of nucleoids that contains the DNA code, the membranous compartment, and they are more complex than a prokaryotic one.
History of the microscope, most likely by Zacharias Janssen. Its magnification range was of 3 and 9 times. Now we have Robert Hooke. He used its microscope for scientific purposes in 1665. He used also lighting candles and its magnification range was of 50 times. Anton van Leeuwenhoek. His microscope had a magnification of 200 times and he published his results in 1684. History of the cell. Robert Hooke introduced the concept of cell, which comes from Latin and means little chambers. Anton van Leeuwenhoek. He observed spermatozoa, protozoa, and bacteria. Theodor Schwann and Matthias Schleiden. They proposed the first postulate of the cell theory. The cell is the elemental unit of plants and animals. Robert Brown described the nucleus in 1831. Johannes Evangelista introduced the concept of protoplasm to describe the cytoplasm. Rudolf A. von Kolliker. He identified the mitochondria. Rudolf Virchow. All cells come from pre-existing cells. Louis Pasteur. He worked on the metabolism of yeast and asepsis. August Weismann. He observed that current and ancestral cells are similar in structure and composition. Lynn Margulis proposed the endosymbiotic theory. The cell theory number 1 states that all living things are made up of cells. Number 2. Every cell comes from a pre-existing one. Number 3 states that the cell is the physiological unit of life. Number 4, the cell contains the hereditary information. And we can add another one which states that disease begins in the cell.
In the cellular transport is divided on two, in the one by one and in the massive. And the one by one is split also in two, the active transport and in the passive transport. And the passive transport has a branch that is facilitated diffusion. And in the part of massive, massive also splits in two, in endocytosis and exocytosis. In the part of one by one, we're going to talk about first about active transport. That is the type of transport that spends energy, and the energy that it most spends is the ATP, that is the adenosine triphosphate, that is the main source of energy of living things, and it spends energy because it's against degrading from that it means from a low concentration of the substance to a higher concentration of the substance. Then the passive transport is the opposite. It doesn't spend energy because it's in favor of degrading. It means that from a high concentration it goes to a lower concentration. The passive transport, the branch that it has is the facilitated diffusion. But to know what is facilitated diffusion, we need to know first what is diffusion. And diffusion is the movement of a liquid or a gas from a place that has a higher concentration to a lower concentration. Like in this image, the bottle of water has red ink in the center, that is the high concentration, and then it's the same bottle of water, but now the red ink is evenly distributed, so it from the high concentration point it goes to the lowest concentration places. Now the facilitated diffusion is the passage of molecules using the proteins. This happens because some particles or molecules are polar and non-polar. The non-polar, like the fats, can pass through the phospholipids, but the ones that are polar, the ones that have a charge, need to pass through the proteins. And now, in the part of the massive transport, we have endocytosis, that is the incorporation of material into the cell, and it also splits into in pinocytosis and phagocytosis. Pinocytosis it means that a liquid can go like the incorporation of suspended fluids like water, or also solids dissolved on liquids. And in this image we can see how the liquid goes into the cell. And the phagocytosis is the one that takes up greater materials like a bacteria or any other solid, and we can see how the water or the liquid is staying outside the cell and it's the solids going into it. And then exocytosis is the other way around, that is the secretion of material produced by the cell. It also splits into in regulated and constitutive. The regulated is that the cell responds to a signal to release that product or waste, and in the constitutive, the secretion is always constant, and we can see how the fluid or the solid is going out the cell. Now the other topic are the levels of organization. We have the biosphere, that is the sum of all the life in Earth, the ecosystem, that is the system where organisms with life and with non-living things are. We have the community, that is the interaction of different organisms, and the population are all the organisms of that species together. After population, we have organismic, that refers to an individual, like a dog. Then we have the organ system, that what that organism has, what type of organ systems. In this case, can have a digestive system. Then the organ, what type of organ that organ system has. It can be a stomach, a heart. And then what type of tissue that organ is, if it's a muscle tissue or any other one. And then after tissue, it comes the cellular, that it can be what type of cells are in the tissue. Then the organelles, what type of organelles are in the cell. It can be a mitochondria. Then what molecules, can be a water molecule or a DNA molecule. And then the atomic one, that refers to the atoms. And the subatomic refers to protons, neutrons, and electrons. And that
And organ systems. Homeostasis is a set of self-regulation phenomena that lead to the conservation of steadiness in the internal composition and properties of an organism. Balance is reached thanks to the mechanisms of self-regulation that every living being has. And this is achieved thanks to metabolism. An example of homeostasis is the regulation of corporal temperature to maintain the vital function. So let's start with organ systems. We have a circulatory system that it's concerned to circulate blood, deliver nutrients and oxygen. Then we have digestive system that it's responsible to turn what you eat into something useful for your body. We have endocrine system that controls and regulates your body by secreting chemicals. Then we have integumentary system that acts as a barrier to protect our skin of disease. We have muscular system that is made up from muscle tissue and consists of cells and fibers that help us to move our body. We have also nervous system that receives and interprets stimuli and transmits impulses to organs. We have reproductive system that ensures that humans are able to reproduce and survive as a species. Then we have respiratory system that supply the blood with oxygen in order to deliver it to all parts of our body through breathing. We have a skeletal system that provides shape and form to our body and supports and protects. And finally, we have urinary system that is in charge to filter out excess of fluid.
So when a person is considered healthy, it's because all of his body functions are working properly. And according to well-known dictionaries, health can be defined as a physical state in which a human, a plant, or an animal can execute normally all his functions. Nowadays, health is affected by industrialization and the acceleration in the pace of life. Due to these factors, as well as others, we can develop a disease which is an alteration in our health. Alteration can be either in a social, in a mental, or in a physical state. In recent studies, people show a higher deficit in the balance of these three main factors, mostly on the physical due to the lack of physical activity, and in the mental due to somatization. Somatization is making your psychological problems into physical illness. So this problem is common in adolescents due to the fact that an adolescent is going through his from his childhood to his adulthood, so he is going through a lot of changes and mostly hormonal ones. And well, it is important to know that the female hormone is estrogen and the male hormone is androgens. Well, the production of all these, of these two hormones, they start making changes among our physical, mental, and psychological states. And well, talking about physical changes in females is the growth of breasts, and in men we have the back widening and the change of voice. In the mental, we have the changing of ideas and ideals, and also you start to see which career you are going to choose in the future. Well, finally, in the social, you start having changes among your friends. You start seeking for people that have or think the same way as you. So due to this fact, you start having a change in your social circle. Even thought that all of these changes like really help you since it defines you as a person. Going through them is really hard since an adolescent is seeking for the approval of grown-ups and their own peers. So a lot of healthy lifestyles or tips people say to you are like these ones. The first one is a good alimentation. By eating well, you have enough energy to perform physical activities, and during this stage, you start gaining weight. So by making a physical activity, it helps you to your body, it helps your organs to function correctly, as well as other many good factors, it helps you. And really like practicing physical activity, it helps you in your mental and social states. Since in a mental, you start gaining self-esteem as well as confidence to yourself. And by gaining confidence, you can go to other people and talk and have new friends, and like you start expanding your social circle. So as you may notice, like having a balanced thing in all these four like circles, you could say to them, really helps you as a person. And also like having a balanced lifestyle helps you to have a healthy mind and a healthy body.